Hello and welcome to that Deacon on YouTube for the month of February 2018. A couple months back, I received a request from someone to demonstrate how we as deacons set the table for Eucharist. So I thought I would take this opportunity to fulfill this request and elicit the help of one of our stellar members of our congregation, James Kerman, better known as Jim, who is head of the Altar Guild and also serves as an acolyte or a lem when we need him, along with both of his daughters, even though his oldest now has gone away to school. So let's start with a conversation with Jim Kerman as we talk about his role in setting the table. I'm here with Jim Kerman, who is not only an acolyte here at St. George's, he's also been senior warden. What else have you done?
Junior warden. I run the Memorial Garden, Altar Guild. I've been on vestry a couple times.
Yeah, so and how long have you been here at St. George's?
20 years. Patty was baptized here when she was a baby, and she's now 19, and I think we came about a year before then. So 20 years.
Yeah, and you do a lot around here.
Well, they pay me really well.
The reason I had us suit up, of course, this is going to be part of the instruction, but the reason I had us suit up now is because Jim has been working downstairs and he's all covered in sawdust. So I thought it would look nicer. When we get to the part with the wine, when we demonstrate how to set the altar, I thought it would be interesting to find out from an acolyte's point of view what you think about.
Well, first of all, I was trained as an acolyte back in the 1960s, and much of what I was taught back then is still the same movements up here assisting the priest with the Eucharist. So if I can go into a service knowing that it's a traditional Eucharist celebration, I'm pretty cognizant of what I need to do with you on a very regular basis. If the service is different, and let's say we have a different setup in the sanctuary, I'll always approach you before the service, find out what the nuances are, changes that we might anticipate. And of course, then you and I have that eye-to-eye contact.
Yeah.
We're both from the stage, so we know how to ad-lib.
Yeah, and also the one general rule is if anything goes wrong or you have to do something different, do it with a purpose and do it slowly. And it looks like...
And no one knows the difference.
What's going on.
Yeah, no one's paying attention.
Right. So when I instruct you on how to set the table today, Jim is going to assist me when we get to the part where we have to have that interaction. So in just a few moments, we'll be up there at the altar, and I'll be showing you and instructing you, those who are interested, how a deacon sets the table. Yep. Be back in a second. All right. So the first thing I have to do when I come up to set the table for Eucharist is remove the veil. Now, the reason I'm vested today is because these albs really come into play. There is so much going on with these billowy sleeves that you actually have to pay attention and keep in mind that these can knock over anything. For example, at our 10 a.m. service, the gifts are brought forward. So when I reach to take the wine or the bread and wine, depending on what we're doing that Sunday, I grab my sleeve with my hand to accept the gifts. If we happen to have the front area set up with a display, I'll step in front, of course, and receive them with both hands, and I don't have to worry about it. But many times, the wine is only brought up to the altar because we have real bread sitting here. I have to watch my sleeve and take the wine from them and acknowledge and bow. Then the next thing I do, I set the wine to my right. The next thing I do is remove the veil from the chalice. And this can be a little bit tricky. Watch out for the sleeves and make sure that you don't knock anything over. The first thing I do is take the burse, and of course you know the burse has another purificator inside in case there's a spill. I've only had to use it once in all my time here. But anyway, it's there if I need it. I take it and move it over to my left. Now, when I remove the veil, you have to grab it and move it forward. I take it, move it forward, and then bring it over the chalice, and I take it and fold it up and set it over here. At this church, at St. George's, I rarely ever have had to use this, but it's there to the left. Next, we have a priest host here. This altar is set up for our 8 a.m. service tomorrow. I'm filming this on a Saturday. So this is set for our 8 a.m. It's a smaller service, so this bread, this huge priest host here, typically will serve everyone. I take my bread, I move it to the left, and I split what is, I just split. There's usually a cross or some sort of embroidery on the corporal here. So what I do is split it. I'm going to show you something that my archdeacon, when I was trained, showed us, and it's really kind of cool. What you do is you see the purificator there. Rather than just grabbing it, you take a couple fingers and you just stuff it inside and pull it out. And what that does is gets rid of any dust or anything that it might have fallen in there since it's been setting there for a while. I place the purificator down. I look over to my acolyte or my lem, and they bring me the wine. We acknowledge our presence, saying thank you. I pour the wine in. I take the purificator and just dab up anything. He will go back down. I will fiddle for a second, and then I will get the water, and we do the same thing. Thank you very much. I put my forefinger in there. I pour a little bit, a little dab, and I hand it back, and we say thank you. Now, there are different histories as to why you pour water into the chalice. The one that I was told that makes sense is that in the early church, Eucharist was only held for those who were baptized. People who were not yet baptized had to leave the service. The episcopos, or the overseer of that group, which became our bishop, they would say, if you're not baptized, you may come back later when you have officially joined us, and they would be thrown out of the building, nicely, I'm sure. But that set up a mystery as to what was going on in there, and there were various rumors. And some of them were that early Christians were cannibals. That's one thing that they heard, because they heard they drank blood and they ate someone's body. The other was that they were a bunch of drunkards and they would just party all night. So what they started to do to say that they were temperate and they were not drunkards, they would cut down the wine with a little bit of water, and that tradition has stayed with us. While I'm at it, I might as well share the other reason why the priest washes their hands. Again, there are many different reasons why people think this came into being. The one, again, that I was taught that makes sense is that in the early church, they had a lot of incense and they had a lot of smoke because we didn't have electric lights. So their hands would get rosin and various grimy things all over them. They would wash them because they were going to touch bread, and they just wanted to wash their hands. I have heard of no reference to Pilate washing his hands and all that about a sacrifice. It was just good sanitation. Really, the chief role of the deacon at the table is to be the chief head waiter. And a good head waiter is one who is there, in control, knows where things are, but stays out of the way to make sure that supreme hospitality rules over the table, as well as the people in our congregation. For me, it's all about hospitality. So speaking of hospitality, I wanted to share with you really my theology through action of what it means to be deacon and the chief steward or the chief waiter at the table. You think it begins when I walk up and remove the pall or the veil from the chalice. No, it actually begins when I drive into the parking lot and make my way to church. Setting the table for me actually begins long before the church service starts. Most Sundays, I park my car away from our main parking lot so that I can practice radical hospitality. Truth be told, there's plenty of room for me to park, but I prefer to perform this act as it physically reminds me that at the heart of Eucharist is a sense of an open, abundant table. Once I make my way to the church office, I unlock doors and then walk through the campus to unlock other areas that will be needed. If I happen to be the organist in that day, I'll unlock the church and make sure the microphone is working properly. Then I place various pieces of literature out on our information table, as well as moving a collection bin for our local food bank. Then I make my way to the altar. I have to see if the altar book has been marked properly. These functions serve to make sure that all who attend a Eucharistic celebration are able to experience supreme hospitality, because this is what Jesus taught when he speaks of the kingdom of God. God's kingdom is set apart from all forms of empire or colonialism. God's kingdom is one of equal distribution so that all will have enough. The role of the deacon as head steward or waiter is to help ensure that there will always be enough, and that is radical hospitality at its most gracious and most holy. Okay, I'm ready to set the table at the 8 a.m. service. I remove the veil, and I will move the chalice off to the side so I can accept the wine being brought up by our senior warden, who accepts the plate to go out and take the collection. And since I have the wine there, you can see I moved the bread to one side, dunked my finger in to clean out any residue, and now I'm ready to pour. I wipe it up. There goes our rector, who's going to put on her chasuble for the service. I take the water, put a little dab, scoop up any extra, hand it back. Thank you. Now I set the paten behind the chalice. I move the napkin. I open up. This year we used a different Eucharistic prayer for Epiphany. So we're using a black notebook. We have that water there in case our rector has a dry throat, so she can take a sip if she wants. I double check to make sure the Eucharistic prayer is set and good. And now the music is done. The people stand. I accept the gifts, and we're off and running. Well, I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it informative. As you must know, every church does everything the same, but a little bit different. I have served at different churches as a guest deacon. I have served at our pro-cathedral at the table. But you have to find out what people's customs are at that particular church. All I can do today is share with you how we do things here at St. George's. But I hope it's been informative. So until next month, I'll see you, and thank you for watching That Deacon on YouTube. Bye-bye.